Let me ask you a question that's
Sure.
a bit parochial to Western, perhaps.
Okay.
In your long career in higher education, you've been on numerous campuses. What do you think makes Western Kentucky University special or a little different?
I think, obviously, a university is a product of its history, and Western has a sense of its own history, and as a result of that, it says we want to excel. We also want to remember that people come from a wide range of backgrounds, and out of that background comes people who can excel. And we always want to be sure that we provide an environment that is friendly and is cordial to anyone who comes from a background. In other words, if you go to a private Eastern school, the expectation is that you come out of some kind of either academic or economic or combination of the two background. And you've got to have that kind of intellectual hierarchy. You can come to a university like Western, and you don't have to possess all those family credentials or all those personal credentials. You have to come, however, with a sense of eagerness to learn and a commitment to excelling and developing. And Western recognizes that, and therefore nourishes a person who comes into that kind of environment. And I think that's something that causes people then to remember it forever, because it gave them a chance to excel in a way that they might never have excelled in any other environment, because they would have been around people who had an inflated or exaggerated sense of their own self-importance.
It's been a little over a decade since you left Western's presidency. As you look back on your years as Western's president, what are you proudest of? What do you feel like that you really left this university with?
I think I'm proudest of the people I employed during the time I was here. People who came in and who built. I look at individuals like Fred Hensley, for example. We hired him from Delta State in Mississippi, and I was kidding him about the fact that we got him from Delta State and brought him here. Looking at the potential of people like Cecile Garman, who was developing her talents at the time, and numerous others who, far too many to mention. And then the faculty members who were employed, not necessarily by me personally, but by other administrators who went out and tried to bring them in. And I think one of the other things we did was a reorganization of some of the colleges, and in an effort to try to focus in and narrow down the number of colleges, but put the support then behind the various programs that were here. Those are some of the things that come to mind.
In some ways, your presidency anticipated some of the major technological changes of the 1990s. You were very concerned about electronic communication, telecommunications. Why did you think it was particularly important for Western to embrace those kinds of things at that time?
Because you could see that those were the things, or at least I felt, no doubt partially because of my own background and my own experience in the field of communication, but because this was a form of communication that we'd never, ever experienced before. Television was one of them. And I'm not sure we ever in higher education fully figured out how to use television most effectively, because it's very time consuming. It's a very expensive medium. And it takes lots of equipment and many people. The computer, on the other hand, is much more of a solo instrument. A faculty member trained in the use of the computer can sit down and produce an enormous amount of programming and materials for learning and teaching. And we could sense that. I can't say that I saw all the things that were coming by any means. I think of the internet and the tremendous impact that it has. And I continue to look at it and say it has potential because, among other things, I have our university involved in preparing for Internet 2. Because, and we're the only university in Mississippi involved at this point, although I think all the rest of them will be as soon as they catch on. That's a search for using a tool that is so dynamic that it still shocks us when we think about what it can do. And I'm eager to find a way to use it effectively to help people learn and develop. And I wish I knew exactly what all the impacts were going to be, but I do know that the technological ability is progressing so rapidly that we must be involved in that. And so I could see for our students, as they went into business and industry, as they went into organizations, or as they went on into education, they were going to be called upon to use this new electronic marvel and do what they could to contribute to a better way of learning.
At a time when most university presidents are lucky to last 5 years, you're pushing 20 years as a university president, first at Western and now at Mississippi State University. That's a remarkable record all by itself. What do you attribute your durability and staying power in such a demanding job?
Nice people, fine universities, and an environment in which I always tried to focus on the other person. I didn't always succeed in that. There were times when faculty, because of their dissatisfaction with their own circumstances, might want to look around and try to find somebody to blame. And it's very easy to look to the president as the person to blame. Actually, though, if you want to go back and do a study, the number one cause for most presidents, at least in the SEC, for losing their job is a lousy football program. And it's not related to the academic world, it's because of the alumni being so upset. And we've had our share of people being dissatisfied with football, and it hasn't always been the success that we wanted. But when our basketball team last year went to the Final Four, that sort of destroyed the argument that maybe he didn't know anything about hiring coaches. I was fortunate. I did hire. And I'm very proud of the fact that I hired Richard Williams, who took us to the Final Four. And I'm very proud of the fact that when I was at Western and there was a coaching vacancy, I recommended that Clem Haskins be named the head basketball coach. And I wrote him several notes as he went to the Final Four this year. In all seriousness, in public universities, particularly in the South, Southeast, it is important to pay attention to the athletic program. And it's been my good fortune to have good athletic directors and people that I have worked with very closely. Our athletic director at Mississippi State, for example, meets with the Executive Council, which is composed of the Vice Presidents, the Chair of the Faculty Senate, Chair of the Staff Council, and President of the Student Association. And the athletic director is sitting there and has an opportunity to speak and certainly to listen to all of the arguments and issues that are confronting us. And there is a tremendous rapport that develops. I hope that has played some role in it. But the other thing that I would say I would want to point to is I've never forgotten why I went into the higher education business. The fundamental, most basic concern of mine is the student and what happens to the student on that campus. And I think the students at Western knew that. And the feedback I've received recently from our students on the campus at Mississippi State, they know that.
And I think it's only appropriate that the university is naming a student residence hall in your honor. And I realize that your schedule is frantic and hectic today, and I appreciate you taking a few minutes to sit down and talk a little bit about higher education and your part in it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's a wonderful day in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and as we celebrate a very, very special event today, one that is well deserved and one that everyone in this room has been looking forward to for quite some time now. And we'll dispense with early remarks here and go ahead and have our meal. Then we'll just have a few remarks. We're not going to go through much in terms of comments or introductions. We'll do that in the formal ceremony at 2 o'clock. But to get us started, let me call Dr. Paul Cook, former Executive Vice President at Western, forward, and served under Dr. Zacharias. So Paul, would you lead us in our invocation?
Let us pray. Our Father and our God, we come before you today with grateful hearts. We're thankful for the magnitude of your glory that manifests itself all about us. We're also thankful for friends and the fellowship that we have here. And Heavenly Father, as we gather here, we are mindful of the privileges that we've had for personal and professional associations through the years, and for the great opportunities that we've had at this institution, and for what it's meant in the lives of so many people. Especially today are we mindful of the Zacharias family, and we would ask your blessings on them. We would especially ask you to be with them as they are about to enter upon a new phase of their lives, and pray that you would give them the measure of health that will help them to do the things that they want to do, that you will comfort them in their periods of adversity, give them courage to face the things that are before them and the opportunity to enjoy their families and to enjoy the balance of their lives. We thank you, Heavenly Father, for the food that has been prepared, and ask that you would bless it to the nourishment of our bodies, would be with us through the balance of this day, and when our time's up here, take us home to heaven. In Jesus' name, amen.
Well, I hope he doesn't take us to date, Paul. You're just being ready, I know. Well, nevertheless, please enjoy your meal, and we'll have remarks shortly. Well, if I could have your attention again, please. I think most of you are about finished. If you would join me in thanking the Linzaean Quartet for the wonderful job and music they provide today. We're so pleased that all of you are here on such a beautiful day, and I can see some of you through the flowers here and some of you through the flowers over here. I hope that you noticed that the meal today was in honor of our special guest from Mississippi. We had catfish. So we hope that you enjoyed that. I'm not going to do but just a handful of introductions. Let me take care of that now, and then we need to move on to our ceremony. We're so honored to have with us today Governor Fordyce, who is the governor of the great state of Mississippi. Governor Fordyce, would you stand, please? And let us recognize you. We also are honored to have three of our elected officials with us today that I want to recognize. The Speaker of the House, Jody Richards. Senator Nick Kofogalis and his wife, Pat. And Commissioner of Agriculture Billy Ray Smith and his wife Sandra. So. I've enjoyed so far today spending a few moments with a lot of my old friends, and some of them are getting old, like Roy Ruby, but some of my old friends from Mississippi State. So those who are here from Mississippi today in honor of Don and Tommy, would you stand and let us recognize you, all those who are here from Mississippi. We're delighted to have you. And I'd like to introduce, have stand as a group, our current members of the Board of Regents and any former members of the Board of Regents at Western. Would you please stand, let us recognize you. Well, we're delighted to have all of you here. This is truly a special day, and I think you're going to enjoy the ceremony in a few moments as we move toward Don. I've got to tell you that the students already inside of the dorm have a sign up called Zach's Shack. I don't know. I knew you would appreciate it. We had they've been trying to decide what to name these buildings, and we had a young man here play basketball for us a couple of years ago named Darius Hall, so that became one of the recommendations. It'd be called Darius Hall. So we've been through quite a bit with this, but it's an exciting day for us, and Tom and Don, we're just so delighted you're here and give us this opportunity to honor you for the great work you did while at Western Kentucky University. Welcome, everyone. We're glad you're here for a very special day at Western Kentucky University. Today we've been looking forward to for a while, since the board passed the dedication resolution sometime earlier this year. To get us started, let me ask Reverend Howard Surface, former pastor of the Episcopal Church, here to come forward for our invocation.
Let us pray. Almighty God, you've given us this good nation, commonwealth, and community for our heritage. We pray that we may always prove ourselves a people mindful of your favor and glad to do your will. We ask your blessing upon all schools, colleges, and universities, especially today upon Western Kentucky University, that it may continue to be a lively center for sound learning, new discovery, and the pursuit of wisdom. And grant that those who teach and those who learn may find you to be the source of all truth. We thank you for all those leaders who have guided the course and development of this university in the past, particularly your servant, Donald Zacharias, in whose name we dedicate this residence hall today. Now we ask your blessing upon Zacharias Hall and those who live in it, those who administer it, and those who maintain it. Peace be to this hall and all who enter here. Amen.
Let me recognize a few special guests today, very special guests coming from the great state of Mississippi, the governor of Mississippi, Mr. Kirk Fordyce. Governor, we're delighted to have you here today, sir. Our stage guests who are not on the program today, I'd like to introduce at this time Mrs. Tommy Zacharias and my wife, Susan. Thank you all for being here. Two former WKU presidents are in the audience today, and I would like to garner your recognition for them at this time, Dr. Dero Downey and Dr. John Minton. We have some local elected officials and one statewide official who is here today. Speaker of the House, Jody Richards. Representative, if you all would stand, we could recognize you all together. Oh, sorry, Jody. Representative Senator Nick Kofoglis and his wife, Pat. And Commissioner of Agriculture, Billy Ray Smith and his wife, Sandra. Thank you all for being here. Constantly providing support for this university, and we thank you. Former Chief Justice of the Kentucky Supreme Court and also a member of the WKU Hall of Distinguished Alumni, Judge John Palmore. Judge. I would like to ask groups to stand together now that are current members of our Board of Regents and former members of our Board of Regents. Would you please stand and be recognized? And then as a group, I would like for all of the special guests who are here today from Mississippi supporting Don and Tommy Zacharias on this special event. If you're seated, please stand. If you're standing, please wave so we'll know where you are. We're delighted to have all of you. Let me ask the chair of our Board of Regents at Western Kentucky University, Ms. Peggy Loafman, to come forward and bring greetings.
Thank you, Dr. Meredith. Dr. Zacharias, Governor Fordyce, honored guest. On behalf of the Board of Regents, I'd like to thank you for helping us celebrate the dedication of this residence hall in honor of Dr. Zacharias. Dr. Zacharias enjoys an excellent reputation in higher education circles, not only in Kentucky, but also in Mississippi, Texas, and across the South. While he was president of Western Kentucky University, Dr. Zacharias helped set the stage for the future by raising academic standards. That continues today as part of Western's moving to a new level. Western Kentucky is a university on the move, but we're also a university with a rich heritage. That heritage is made possible by the leadership provided by its presidents. It is fitting that we honor one of those leaders, placing his name in a prominent place on this campus. As chair of the Board of Regents, I was pleased that we are taking this opportunity to honor Western's 6th president, Dr. Donald W. Zacharias. Congratulations.
Good job. And now it's my honor and pleasure to bring forth our student body president, who's president of the Student Government Association, who also serves as our student regent, Ms. Kristen Miller.
Thank you, Dr. Meredith. Good afternoon. I'm very honored to be here on what is probably the most beautiful day I've seen all year, and we credit you for that, Dr. Zacharias. On behalf of the students at Western Kentucky University, I would like to welcome Dr. Zacharias back to what I'm sure he would say is the second best university in the South, but we all know better. When I was asked to speak today, I was a little confused at first about what I should say. So I talked to the folks in University Relations, and they offered to send me a little bit more information about Zacharias Hall. I think they took me a little bit too literally, because here's what I received. Dr. Zacharias, I'm sure will be pleased to know that this building contains 104 double occupancy rooms, 6 resident assistants' bedrooms, and 1 apartment for the hall director. You'll also be happy to find that each room is typically 11 feet 7 inches by 15 feet 10 inches. The exterior finish includes brick veneer and synthetic plaster, and it's built on a steel frame supported by structural slabs of concrete on metal deck over steel joists. After writing that down and reading it, I decided to take another approach with my remarks. So I went and asked some students for their information on Zacharias Hall. Now, the first thing students said when they heard we were naming the hall was, "It's about time." After all, until now, this beautiful building had only existed under the less than distinguished name of New Coeducational Residence Hall, or New Coed for short. Maybe that name fit about 5 years ago when the hall opened, but somehow New Coed was becoming less appropriate each year. The second thing students said once they heard that the name of the hall was going to become Zacharias Hall was, "Well, what can we call it?" See, for those of you who don't deal with college students on a regular basis, there's something you should know. We're reluctant to expend any unnecessary energy in saying words or phrases that can be shortened to initials or buzzwords. This is done to save our strength for marathon study sessions, of course. Hence, Western Kentucky University becomes WKU. The Ivan Wilson Fine Arts Center becomes FAC. Darrow Downing University Center has become simply DUC. So when students heard New Coed Hall was to become Zacharias Hall, you could already feel the panic. After all, that's 4 whole syllables. Luckily, the campus anxiety attack was quickly quelled, and Zach Hall was born. Finally, and more seriously, I feel it's fitting that this building, which is so important to students, is now named after a man who is so important to students. A building which exists for students now honors a man who always has and still does exist for the students. I think it's a perfect match, like 2 colleagues, 2 friends, or even 2 roommates. Thank you. Have a wonderful afternoon, and congratulations, Dr. Zacharias.
You can imagine how we're anticipating what she might say at graduation this year.
Hey.
I told a group earlier today that one of the names that I've heard being used already is Zach Shack, so who knows where it's going to go. Let me ask now former chair of the WKU Board of Regents, member from 1975 to 1983, and the man who was chair when Dr. Zacharias was hired, to come forward for remarks, Mr. John David Coe.
At the outset, Governor, let us remind you of the connection between Purdue and Western. Your basketball coach, Gene Cady, got his start here on the Hill and under the tenure of Don Zacharias. It has been said that one of the certainties in life is change. However, as things change, they often remain the same. When I first met Don Zacharias in 1979, it was in the midst of a presidential search. Don, the same is true today. When we first met, higher education in Kentucky was in turmoil. It was in a process of significant financial reduction and constraints, and our sister university to the west was in dire straits. The same is true today. Much has been said about a proposal that would reorganize and focus higher education. There are some who would suggest, I say, that we're hearing from some quarters a community college answer to a graduate level problem. This is certainly a time of hope and optimism. When Don was installed as Western's 6th president on April the 26th, 1980, he said at the time, "A university exists for the transfer of information, artistic expression, and encouraging the best in human performance." He said it, he proved it. During Don's watch as president, there was a focus on academic excellence, of reorganization, of a recognition that a university is a community of scholars, a marketplace of ideas, one of openness, one of optimism. As we give Don Zacharias and his family due recognition today, we certainly would want to pause and remember the sage advice, the good humor of Bill Biven. And if Bill were here, he would say, "I told you so." Henry Hardin will remember in the weeks or the days prior to Don being installed of coming up with an appropriate symbol. I said, "Henry, you have a problem, because we need some symbol, something to recognize the presidency." So Henry can take full credit for the medallion, which was initially, I think, in aluminum and now has been made permanent. Oftentimes when you think about attorneys, you think about cases. I remember the morning I met Don at the guest house, the day that he was going to be introduced as the person selected by the Board of Regents. He gave me a case of Takata, and I absolutely confirmed the wisdom of our selection, I think. We should note that this is not Don Zacharias Hall, but rather it is Zacharias Hall. It is a fitting tribute to a man, to his family, to Tommy, to Alan, to Eric, to Leslie, who were an example to us all in terms of university citizenship and being good and contributing citizens of this community in this area. Don, this dorm is a tribute to your past contribution to the growth and maturity and academic excellence under your leadership. But more importantly, Don, it is a symbol, and when people come by, it is a symbol of what has been and what is yet to be. This is a due recognition for the contribution of you and your family to Western, and we thank you, sir.
Thank you, David. It's now my pleasure to call forward another former chair of the WKU Board of Regents and a member from 1980 to 1984, longtime member of the State Kentucky Council on Higher Education, Mr. Joe Bill Campbell.
Thank you, Tom. I'm really honored today to have this opportunity to speak about Don Zacharias. When I was asked to participate in this program, I pondered the question, what is the very best thing you can say about another person? My first thought, I was reminded that what my friend David Cole used to say, that the legacy we leave in life is our children. So I thought that maybe the first thought I had was the best thing you can say about another person is that he or she is a good parent. Don Zacharias was and is a wonderful parent. Over the years that I had occasion to work with him here on the Hill, it was always obvious to me that no matter how busy he was or how intense the demands on his time, there was never anything more important to him than his children. And he always took the time to see to the needs of his children. He encouraged them, he supported them, he provided them with the love and the discipline that every child needs in life in order to succeed. And succeed they did. Alan, Eric, Leslie have all been very... The next thought I had was that maybe the best thing you can say about a person is that he or she is a wonderful spouse. Don Zacharias and his lovely wife, Tommy, have a marriage that is to be envied by all. I observed their relationship over the years, and it was clear to me that they had a marriage that was built on a solid foundation, one based on love, mutual respect, trust, commitment, and concern. Don Zacharias and his lovely wife, Tommy, were and are wonderful parents. I know that I could say without any doubt that Don Zacharias was the consummate professional, a college president unsurpassed in his commitment to make a university the best it can be. He's like a Larry Bird or a Magic Johnson. He always makes those around him better. He is a leader. He has vision. He has understanding. He has compassion. He has a will to succeed. He is courageous. He is fair. He is unafraid. He recognized that as the president of the university, he was the head. But he never for 1 minute forgot that it is the faculty that is the heart and soul of every university. And it is the students that serve as the lifeline or the bloodline for every university. If you ever wondered what a college president should be, then all you have to do is look at Don Zacharias. He is the epitome of what every college president should strive to be. I went to church with Don here, so I know that I can say that Don Zacharias is a man who loves his God, who has served his God and his church and the communities that he has lived in. All of these things I can say about Don Zacharias, and all of them are true. But for me personally, the best thing I can say about him is he is my friend. He changed my life. He helped me understand and appreciate what higher education means, not only to the faculty and the staff and the students, but to the community, the state, and the nation. His entire adult life has been about education. He educated me. He taught me the importance of using your life to serve others. He taught me that there is no greater reward in life than the feeling you get by helping make someone else's life better. As I told him in a note recently, I'm so glad our paths cross. He made my life richer, fuller. He is my friend. So it's only fitting that we honor him today by placing his name on this dormitory. This dormitory now bears his name, and it will change this dormitory forever. It is no longer simply a dormitory housing students, but rather it is a monument to all that is good and all that is right in higher education and in life. Don, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for all that you have given to us and to this university. May God bless you as you have blessed us.
Thank you, Joe Bill. This building opened for the 1992 fall semester as New Co-ed Hall, as Kristen told you earlier. And these two were constructed at the same time and opened at the same time. Kristen has already told you it's a 3-story structure, has 212 rooms in it. I've forgotten all the rest, Kristen, but there's a whole lot of stuff in there. But they are constructed in suite style, and it features a lounge, recreation room, computer room, and laundry room. Each floor has a study room and a kitchen as well. And when we are finished with our ceremony today, and as you enjoy the reception, I'm hoping that you will take the opportunity to walk inside of this new residence hall and see what's there. I think you'll enjoy what you see. If some doors are closed, please knock first. Dr. Zacharias became Western's president in August of 1979 and served in 1985. He established our first formal fundraising program. He is given credit for increasing academic quality at Western, and he was left in 1985 to become Mississippi State's 15th president in September of that year. And I may be one of the few in here, or maybe the only one in here who's here today, who's had the opportunity to see Dr. Zacharias operate in 2 different states. I knew of his good work here, coming back to my alma mater, but I also had the opportunity to watch him for 3 years in the state of Mississippi before I left. And the reputation that he established there would be envied by anyone, and that continues today. He has served as a member of the executive and steering committees of the National Association of State University and Land Grant Colleges. He's the 1992 recipient of the Justin Smith Morrell Medal from the United States Department of Agriculture's Office of Higher Education. He is a member of the 1997 Hall of Fame Committee of the Mississippi Press Association and has now renounced his retirement as president of Mississippi State effective January the 1st, 1998, which will be a major loss to that great university. Now let me ask Ms. Peggy Loafman, Chair of our Board of Regents, to come forward for the official dedication. Peggy?
Dr. Zacharias, would you join us?
Tommy, would you come up too, please? Stand beside Don.
Now my pleasure to dedicate this building as Donald Zacharias Hall.
So if you'll turn around, if this works. And it's your turn for some remarks. Don, the microphone is yours.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Governor Fordyce, I'm so glad you came to hear these nice remarks. It's always, you don't know how much it cost me to get these people to make these comments so that when I went home, the governor would feel better about the decision. And brother, have I got some stories to tell you. But I'm not going to tell them today. I'm too overwhelmed by the dedication. And I want to say, Ms. Miller, congratulations to you. Students are, I believe the academic average has increased here over the years. Certainly, if you're any indication, I'm very, very proud. Ms. Loafman, congratulations and my appreciation to you and members of the Board of Trustees. I tried to think of what I ought to say. And as you might imagine, it's hard to know what to say on this kind of occasion, particularly when people are standing in the sun. I thought of something that some of you remember. The comedian Shelley Berman used to talk about a flight attendant who was asked when they were on a flight to Los Angeles, how long does it take to make this flight to L.A.? And the flight attendant said, I don't know, we've never completed it before. I've got to say to you, I've never had this happen to me before, so I don't know exactly what I should say other than to express my appreciation to everyone and to say how much I care about everybody. And I will promise you to keep this flight fairly brief. My training in communication and media caused me to fall back on the famous 5 W's. But I know you know all of those, and I realized that I should turn maybe to somebody else. And so I turned to my friend Tom Robbins, the novelist, and in his book, Even Cowgirls Get the Blues, he talks about the famous 5 W's. And I like his 5 W's. And so this is what came to mind for me. Wow, whoopee, wahoo, why not, and whee. I think that about describes all the emotions that I can generate on a day like this. This plaza is filled with people whom I would be happy to spend eternity with. As a matter of fact, some of you who've worked with me here at Western, Dr. Paul Cook, and scads of others, I can't name all of you. Paul and I made those long trips to Frankfurt and back. It's so nice to have an airplane in Mississippi, let me tell you, Paul. And my friends in Mississippi, at Mississippi State would probably say they've already spent an eternity with me. So they're not going to be too impressed by that. Governor Fordyce came along, as I said earlier, to check to see if I did in fact have the friends I claim to have in Kentucky. And thank you all for showing up. I don't know what Tom did to bribe you to get you to be here, but it is wonderful for you to be here. My first thoughts obviously go to my dear friend Tom Meredith, and it is true we work together. And Tom, if you'd just been a little more patient, there's going to be another job in Mississippi. Lost out on my chance to get him to come to Mississippi State. To the members of the Western Kentucky University Board of Regents, led by Peggy Loafman, I am most grateful to you. You were presented, I know, with unlimited opportunities for coming up with names, and the students, no doubt, will offer you better choices. And that's fine. Zach Shack is all right with me. I've been known as Zach all my life, even behind my back in every university I've ever been, or Dr. Z on some occasion, but that wouldn't fit in too well here. I also want to say just a quick word to my relatives, Uncle Everett and Doris, my stepsister, Betty Mathis, and her husband, John, and my cousin, Harold Zacharias, and his wife, Norma. They all drove from Indiana just to be sure that there wasn't a mistake in the program. And I'd like to ask all of you to stand, because I want, along with one other person, and that is Jenny Smith, who is our son Eric's mother-in-law. She drove in from Nashville and brought her charm to this gathering. After all, her daughter had the misfortune of marrying into the Zacharias family, so she's got to be sure she keeps up with what's happening. If you all would stand, I would like for all of you to see them, please. Thank you. You know, everybody has somebody who helps him keep going when the fuel pump says it doesn't want to go on, or the gas tank is getting a little empty, and you've just seen them. These are people who refueled me on so many occasions, and I'm so glad we're all together on this occasion. Our children send their regrets. There's been reference to them. I think you know that both Alan and Eric graduated from Bowling Green High School. Alan is on a medical research project in Paris, France. Eric is booked with patients in Denver, Colorado, and Leslie is hard at work in Charlotte, North Carolina, preparing for a May wedding, and she's got to pay for it somehow. Tommy and I want to express our warmest appreciation to David Cole and Ronnie Clark and Carol Nicely and Mike Harrell, and all of you who were members of that first Board of Regents, and then all the other members with whom I had a chance of serving. And what Joe Bill said was so warm and meaningful to me. And Howard, Father Surface, who was the rector and who tried to keep those little boys acolyting. And Henry, you know what a hard job it is to get two cantankerous boys to church on Sunday, especially when it's time to acolyte. But it paid off, Howard. Keep the faith. The years pass far too quickly, and the hours of fun and celebration are far too short. The great board leadership that we've already talked about, and Joe Iracane and Joe Bill and Dave Cole, they helped us address the future of this university with all of our determination and might during our time of service together. When I look about this room or this space, I'm reminded about the happiest and best people I know or have ever known. And I've noticed that they possess one characteristic. They know how to enjoy life. They watch for the chance to have some fun, bring fun to others, or create a place for others to discover the special joys of life. One author has observed that the brown paper bag is the only thing that man has ever created that does not seem out of place in nature. I think he was wrong. I think there's one other thing. Buildings that provide shelter, create a place for genuine fellowship and conversation, allow people to establish their personal space for their own reflection and creativity, surely are also friendly
to nature and belong here. Western has long been known for the way it cares for its students and their development. It's a pleasure to see my family name joined with that effort. You've given us a joy that we celebrate with you. It's a place for me where the experiences of a lifetime will mill and mingle. I could receive no richer honor. Thank you.
Now that I've let you get seated, I need to give you
Okay.
a couple of things, so if you can come back.
Okay.
We got 2 or 3 things that we want to give you. A picture of Zacharias Hall with the letters on there before the cover went over it, so that you can show that and make sure they know that it was real back in Mississippi.
Thank you.
Inside this building, there's a beautiful plaque that you will see that I hope you'll go in and look at with a relief of Don on that and noting this day and your accomplishments. So Don, here's a replica of what is inside on the wall that we think that you will enjoy having. So we want you to have that.
Thank you.
Still coming. Now, if you'll indulge me for just a moment, the Board of Regents passed a resolution naming this hall for you, Don, and I'd like to take just a moment to read that and for this group to know. Whereas Dr. Donald W. Zacharias served as the 6th president of Western Kentucky University from 1979 to 1985. As president of Western, he helped raise academic standards, developed a strategic plan, and established the first comprehensive development program. Dr. Zacharias served as a leader and spokesperson for higher education in the Commonwealth, and whereas he had previously been an administrator in the University of Texas system, serving as executive assistant to the chancellor of the 14-campus statewide system and as assistant to the president of the Austin campus. And whereas he won awards for outstanding teaching in both Indiana and Texas. He was born in Salem, Indiana, and is married to the former Tommy Klein Deacle. They have 2 sons and a daughter. And whereas Dr. Zacharias received his BA degree from Georgetown College in Kentucky in 1957, he received a master's degree in 1959 from Indiana University and was awarded the doctorate in communication from the same institution in 1963. He also holds an honorary doctorate of law from Georgetown for distinguished contributions to the college and received the institution's 1963 Alumni Achievement Award. And whereas Dr. Zacharias became the 15th president of Mississippi State University in September 1985. Since then, the university has grown significantly in enrollment and has set records for private contributions and levels of research activity. From the beginning of his presidency, he has been one of Mississippi's leading spokesmen for higher education and has been active in national higher education circles. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Regents of Western Kentucky University unanimously approves the naming of the new co-ed hall for former President Donald W. Zacharias. The building will be named Zacharias Hall. Don, congratulations. Thank you. You can just leave us here. We have now a special presentation from Steve Briggs, who is the director of Zacharias Hall. Steve?
Thank you very much. Just wanted to take a moment. I noticed in Dr. Lowell Harrison's book, Western Kentucky University, there's a caption there that say "Back Zach," with students rallying behind Dr. Zacharias at that time in 1981. And as we dedicate the building, the students, Kristen hit the nail on the head, and Dr. Meredith, you too, have affectionately coined the hall the Zach Shack. And University Relations has gone and created a t-shirt to take with you, Dr. Zacharias. We do have the dedication on the front, and it says on the back, Zach Shack, a sweet, as in sweet styles, place to live. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's neat. On a personal note, let me just say to all of you that this has been a special treat for me. I've been an admirer of Don Zacharias for a long time, and And I think this is a very fitting dedication to him and his good work. Now I want to invite you to a reception under the tent to give you a moment to get out of the sun, and then tour the building. If at your leisure, we would love to have you inside. Thank you all for coming. Congratulations to Tommy and Don.